Could we please have our first question?
John Stanford. If we vote no to the EU, is this a leap into the unknown?
Paul Nuttall.
Well, I would say that a leap into the unknown would actually be staying in the European Union, because what we will be voting on June the 23rd isn't the European Union as it is today. It will be the European Union circa 2030, because we will probably be putting this issue to bed for a generation if we vote to remain. And what will the EU look like in 2030? We know there'll be ever greater harmonisation. We hear the Vice President of the European Commission and the President talking about an EU army. Bosnia, for example, applied to join the EU only last week, has the highest youth unemployment in Europe. Serbia will eventually apply to join. The Ukraine, who knows down the line? You know, you've got a Prime Minister, the British Prime Minister, who has spoken about a European Union which will stretch as far as from the Atlantic to the Ural Mountains, and who knows, look, in this country, every single political party backs Turkey joining the European Union. Turkey, a country of 75 million people, a country which only 3% of it is actually in Europe, a country which borders with Iran, Iraq, Syria. It's a very scary place to be, ladies and gentlemen. I think it would be far more dangerous for us to actually vote to stay in.
Lucy Kyle.
Yes, I do think if we voted to leave the EU, it would be a leap into the unknown. Let's be clear, I mean, everything about Europe is not perfect, far from it. Like in any relationship, in any partnership, in any collaboration, you make compromises. You have to make those compromises, and sometimes things don't quite go your way, but you... in staying in those relationships and those partnerships, you think about whether you are better off in them or out of them. And I think that on all the measures, whether it's economically, whether it's in terms of our influence in the world, whether it's in terms of how we deal with some of the global challenges that we face as a country, from climate change to global crime and the movement of people, we are better off in the European Union. And if we vote in June to leave, that's exactly what we will do. I think those who have been trying to suggest this week that somehow we can vote to leave in the hope that actually we can then stay at some point in the future is a fanciful suggestion. We will leave, and we will then have a protracted period of time where we're trying to negotiate the terms under which we would leave, and then we would have another protracted period of time thereafter where we would be trying to rebuild some of the trading relationships that we benefit so greatly from in Europe. And I think those years and years of uncertainty would have a devastating impact on our economy. I think that's partly why we've seen the markets fall and the pound fall as we've seen in the last few days.
On that, you're sounding, leave aside any other discussion, you're sounding remarkably like the Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Well, I think he's got a good point, but I think one of the differences I would make really with George Osborne about that is, you know, often I think this debate is about the EU is, well, big business say it's a good thing for us to stay in, it's clear it's good for business, but what does it actually mean for my constituents? What does it mean for ordinary working people? But whenever there are economic shocks, whenever there are economic uncertainties, it's not big business who pay the price. They just get up and move elsewhere. It's ordinary, hard-working people who pay the price in their pockets because their living standards are falling, because their savings are plummeting in value, because their pensions are falling, because we need further austerity, as we just heard on the news. And it's ordinary working people who will pay the price for the economic uncertainty that would fall from us leaving the EU.
Brendan O'Neill.
Yeah, it kind of would be a leap into the unknown, but what's wrong with that? A lot of great historic developments have been brought about by leaping into the unknown. You know, the discovery of America, loads of things. Sometimes we have to take a risk. We have to have a period of uncertainty. There's one really simple reason that we must leave the EU, and that is that the EU dilutes our democratic rights. It waters down popular sovereignty. It weakens our ability to hold our rulers to account. And, you know, EU supporters will always present it as this kind of wonderful, historic, happy-clappy union of the European peoples. Actually, the EU is all about nation-states around Europe outsourcing various powers to institutions which are largely unaccountable, which are largely beyond our reach. The European Commission, the European Court of Justice. And to my mind, the key defining thing about democracy is that people consent to the institutions they are ruled by. Democracy is about having a direct, interactive relationship with the people who rule us. I would say democracy is the greatest European value of all, from when it was first thought up by the Greeks to all those great developments, radical movements in Britain, the Chartists, the Levellers, the Suffragettes, French people's experimentation with living in communes, German revolutions to get rid of imperial governments. For hundreds and hundreds of years, European people have fought for control over their political destiny. The EU undermines that. The EU is anti-European.
And if it is, as you concede, a leap into the dark, if you like, a wing and a prayer, in the name of democracy, and on the other hand, there is a fall in the pound, loss of investment, jobs and the rest that follow, that's a price you would pay.
I think I would pay any price to defend people's right to consent to who rules them. And all those things that the Stay campaign talk about, job security, workers' rights, the economy and so on, those are things that should be under our democratic control. We are a democratic nation. We should have say-so over those things. So yes, there may be a dip, things might go a bit wrong for a while, but we should have the final say on all those issues.
Well,
Therese, I'll come back to you, Lucy. Therese Coffey.
I think we'd be stronger, safer, better off by staying in the reformed EU. With our special status, I think we'll have the best of both worlds. We'll be stronger, we'll play a leading role, shaping big decisions on trade and security that determine our future. I think we'll be safer, we'll work with partners to fight cross-border crime, terrorism, particularly in this uncertain world. So cooperating on security, but no EU army, we won't be losing our sovereignty. I think we'd be better off. Businesses and people at home will have full access to the single market of 500 million people, bringing investment, jobs and lower prices. I mean, people saying leave and we'll be fine. I understand we are a big market, but this element of uncertainty, I can assure you, businesses will be concerned about additional investment while we have that risk. I mean, frankly, the people who want to leave have to say what kind of model it is that they want. You know, Norway and Switzerland, they have freedom of movement. They have to pay into the EU. And I can tell you from my 12 years in business, I don't want to be the person with my face up against the glass looking at other people setting the rules and then being handed them on how I do trade. I want to be sat at the table, making that deal, working with us, because it is absolutely for the people of this country. I genuinely believe you'll be more prosperous by staying in this reformed EU.
Can I just put...